Dovolte mi, vážení přátelé, dámy, pánové, vývojáři, fandové webových technologií, dovolte mi vás přivítat na půdě Unicorn College. Znáte, možná tam neznáte, jsou tady studenti vysoké školy zaměřené na informační technologie a nedávno za mnou přišel Tomáš Holas, kterého tady vítám, a říkal, hele Marku, jakože Google User Group bude pořád takovou zajímavou přednášku a tak nějak jako hledáme, někdy by se to dalo uspořádat a taky byste to mohli udělat jako Unicorn College User Group, protože ty webové technologie, ta škola, že by to jako mohlo být dobrý. Říkám, no to je dobrý, a co to jako bude obnášet? No jako nic, jenom potom jakože na tu přednášku jako sál, kde ta projektor, mikrofon, kamera, říkám, to je v pohodě. Takže jako takhle jsme se mi dostali jako k této přednášce a rovnou jsme se zřídili Unicorn College User Group Google, ve které vlastně chceme společně s vámi se věnovat googlovským a webovým technologiím. A ta dnešní přednáška je vlastně i naše zahajovací, takže ještě nám tady chybí to šampanické, aby jsme si tady mohli trošku poštít tuto naší aktivitu. Tímhletím já teď vítám Tomáše, který vám teď vlastně představí, o čem ta přednáška bude. A hlavně tady přivítám našeho hosta Chewyho Trewhellyho, kterého ještě předvede Tomáš. Takže já vás tady u nás vítám, přeji příjemný zážitek a věřím, že se ještě někdy uvidíme na další akci pořádané na Světlu.
Unicorn College, Google User.
Tak.
Vlastně taková otázka, proč jsme si vlastně vybrali Google, nebo k čemu tahle celá skupina slouží. S tímhletím nápadem za mnou přišli lidé z ug.gg.cz, který už tady z Google User Group v České republice mají další dobu. Jo, a ten nápad je takový, že vlastně chceme z ug.gg.cz zřídit víc tady těch lokálních Google User Group, jako v technologických centrech, to znamená na školách, ve firmách, jo, tady vlastně v těch místech, kde se děje nějaká inovace, tak aby vlastně ta česká Google User Group měla do těch míst snadnější přístup. Jo, zároveň tady v těch centrech vlastně lidé budou mít tu výhodu, že si jim to usnadní vlastně komunikaci jako s Googlem a s tou českou skupinou a budou mít jednodušší přístup jako k nejnovějším technologiím. Jo? Tak o tohle nám vlastně jde, nějak to propojit všechno dohromady. Jo, tak tímhletím bych vás tady všechny rád přivítal a už radši předám slovo Chewymu, který nám něco řekne o novinkách, který Google připravil vlastně v Google Friendconnect. Jo, což je taková technologie, která by měla umožnit jako jednoduše přidat sociální funkcionalitu na vaše vlastní webové stránky, jenom v podstatě pomocí copy-paste různých widgetů a mohla by sloužit třeba jako taková otevřenější alternativa různých sociálních sítí. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming here, and now I would like to introduce Chewy Trewhella, who is going to talk about Google Friendconnect. Yes. Okay, Chewy.
So I get to wear a silly microphone. Is it on? Is it working? No? Do we need it? I guess maybe you need it for video. No, don't need it? Okay. So, my first slide was going to be this, but I think these guys have already covered it. But this is the first event organised by a local Google user group, and it's really interesting to see how the community is growing and how things are being supported. So thank you guys for coming along, and thank you Tom for setting it up. We're going to cover 4 main things today. The social work. iGoogle is a really nice way to understand how to build small content. We'll talk about Facebook, we'll talk about open social in a little bit. But what we're seeing with applications is they're small elements on a web page. And iGoogle lets you practice that very easily. Then we're going to talk about the social web, a little bit about open social, Facebook, Twitter, real-time search, and then Friendconnect, the main interesting thing. And then the final bit is just web expression, which is 5 websites that I love, that aren't really related, but I'd just like to show them. Well, first of all, that's not me. But it's very, very important when you're developing anything for the web, take baby steps. I don't know if that translates effectively, but what it means is just take a little step at a time. A lot of companies especially, but also a lot of developers, will sit down and they'll make a big, amazing plan. And they'll plan out something which is going to take 6 months or a year to develop. And in 6 months or a year, the whole web could have changed. You know, before Facebook came around, the impact it had in 1 year was massive. It changed the face of the web entirely. Things like Twitter as well have really changed how people communicate. You know, you look even at something like email. Before email existed, computers were just computers. Suddenly, they were communicating. And so if you wait a long time, if you plan a big project, build it in secret and then launch it, maybe by the time you've launched it, it won't be relevant anymore. Much better to take your site and add lots of little features. Measure the impact of users visiting the site, see if they engage, see if they click the buttons, see if they use the features. If they don't, then plan something else. But it means that you won't have too much time wasted. Anyway, that being said, wow, bright yellow, sorry. Personalization is something that's changing on the internet all the time. People visit websites now, and they expect to be able to personalize their experience in some way, to make that page their own. And they don't necessarily want to have to log in to do this. Hopefully you guys have heard of the BBC. If not, I apologise, but they're a big UK organisation. They do a lot of TV and news. And if you visit their homepage, you'll see that bbc.co.uk. Is it going to load? Yes. So each of these is a widget or a gadget or a separate element on the page. And you'll see edit and then this cross sign. And what this means is you can actually remove these elements. You can tailor them for your own needs. And it will remember using a cookie. So you'll see here, I've got rid of sport because I'm not interested in it. And I've added technology because that's what I'm interested in. And so now whenever I come to the BBC, just with a cookie, it's able to remember what I like and deliver information that's useful to me. They could then start to look at what I'm interested in, or, you know, what stories I look at, and make recommendations based on that, if they wanted to. But the point is, it's becoming my experience, not just something they give to everyone. The other thing that is changing quite a lot is, or the other thing that we're seeing a lot of use of, is something called search wiki. Now, if you're logged in and you do a Google search, you might see these buttons here. How many of you have ever played with these? A few. Okay, that's good. The last presentation I went to, I said, how many people have ever seen these? And everyone went, no. But our records show that we have tens of millions of annotations, people using these buttons every day. And what they let you do is really personalize your Google search. So let's say that this is your best result for goat. You can click it, and it will jump up to the top. By the way, if you haven't seen this video, watch it. It's really good. It really is. It's awesome. But by having these buttons here, you're able to move the results that are important to you to the top. And it means that you just have to remember the search term. You don't have to remember the URL. You don't have to remember, you know, it was the 8th result. You just click, push it to the top, and then whatever computer you're using, around at your mother's house or on a friend's computer or a different browser, as long as you're logged in, you'll see here at the top, there. So I'm logged in. It will remember your search wiki settings. And also, if there are results that you don't like, you can click this, gone, and it will disappear. Now, if I want to bring it back, there are some tools at the bottom that let me do that. But the point is making these search results my own, really helping to deliver that personalization, give the key features. I apologize for these slides, they're very bad, but Google makes me put them in. That's unfair, they're very good. The web is good, social is good, web plus social, better. But the point of this is that actually social does make the web better. And it's been underpinning a lot of the experience on the web for a while. Things like most read articles on a news website, or most commented. That's, well, it's not necessarily your friends, it's what real people are looking at. And it's what's important to people right now. Sharing, you know, being able to post links to other people on the web, or back to services that you subscribe to. That's a great way for people to find out about content. Amazon. I don't know how popular Amazon is over here, but one of the features they've had for years is customers who bought this item also bought this. So I'm big into video games, you'll find that out later. But so it'll be most of my examples. But when I buy like Professor Layton for the Nintendo DS, I don't know if that's made it over here, it's great for sitting in airports. But it recommends other games that people have also bought. And because I'm thinking, ooh, I could buy 2 games and they've got an offer, click, it just encourages you. By putting these things together that real people actually purchase, it's a really, really powerful motivator. We're also experimenting on YouTube with things like people watching videos as you're watching them, and also what your friends are watching in real time. But communication and the web itself is changing. This is a silly slide, but it does underline changes. There was a survey to 250 students in Canada at university, and they were asked, do you prefer email or instant messaging? Unsurprisingly, they mostly said instant messaging. Why? Well, it's instant. You can actually send a message and bop, it's arrived at someone's computer. You can see that the other person's online. You can communicate in real time. You can see when they're typing. And quite often you can click a button and turn it into a voice or a video conversation very easily. With email, they felt that you write a big email and you send it and it's gone. You don't know if they've received it, you don't know if they've got it, you don't know if they're going to reply. I think once these students hit real life and have to work, they'll realise there's a big benefit in being able to send an email and go, I don't care anymore, someone else's problem. But until then, they want this instant communication. And we're seeing more and more websites actually starting to integrate real-time chat. There's been a lot of interest around things like Google Wave as well, integrating that into a website to allow people to communicate. So, always think that whatever you're doing right now, in a month's time, it might be obsolete. Even though you're still using it, your kids or the next generation coming up are going to be looking for something new. There are 5 eras of the social web. Forrester generated this report. It's a really good report. You can get it online. I'm going to summarize it very quickly now. Most of it should be pretty straightforward. But social relationships. This is signing up for things like MySpace, Facebook, and so on. Just becoming part of a social network. Orchid, maybe. I don't know if anyone uses that. Social functionality is the next stage. Facebook did this first, and they did it brilliantly. There can be no denying. They turned their platform, or they turned their service into a platform. They allowed developers to build content and put it on top. How many people have a Facebook account? Is it super popular over there? Yeah. Me too. How many people have had a sheep threat, or been, super mega poked, or bitten by a zombie, or something like that? Anyone? No? Just me. All my friends have these bitten by a zombie, and then you bite it anyway. We'll come to that. The next one, social colonization. Now this is for me where it starts to get really interesting. This is the idea that you take your social network login and you can use it to log into other websites. This is cool for me as a user because it means I don't have to remember more usernames and passwords. It's cool for me as a site owner because I know that the person who comes to my website isn't going to lie about who they are. How many people have lied on a web registration form, given bogus information? Yes, most of you. Everyone does it. And in fact, the 2 most popular zip codes in when you're asked for a zip code, can anyone guess what they are? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, top of the other one, 90210. Has Beverly Hills 90210 made it over here? Yeah, so people just put in 90210 because they've heard of it and they want to say they're from Beverly Hills. So a lot of user databases will actually be skewed, showing people coming from these 2 areas because people just want to register quickly. The only thing they'll be truthful about often is the email address because they think they're probably going to get an email to have to verify themselves. And actually that in itself is a really bad process. Think about it. You want to register for a website, you want to leave a comment for a news article, say. What you have to do, give them your name, give them your email, make up a password, possibly give them a zip code or your mother's maiden name or some sort of password hint. Once you've done that, they'll send you an email. And then the email says, please click here to verify your email address. And you click it. And then you go back to the website. And it's like, brilliant, you're verified. Now you can log in. And if you can remember your password, you log in. And then you've got to find the article that you originally wanted to comment on and go comment. By which time you're just like, forget it. I'll do it another time. Or I'll do it on another site. Or I just won't do it. So, by allowing people to log in like that, they can actually engage with the content that they want. And the site only gives real information about who they are. More importantly, a lot of the time, they can access the social network and they can access the public profile. And they can actually start to gain information about the user, what their interests are, who their friends are, what their friends' interests are. And they can use this to drive them to different places. So we saw personalization earlier with the BBC. Imagine that I could log in with my Facebook account. They could pull my interests from Facebook and then serve news on the front page, tailored to my preference, without me having to do anything. That would be cool. Social context. This takes it one step further. This, PowerPoint animation. This social context allows you not only to log in to a website and for the website to learn about you, but it allows you to find out which of your friends are there and what they're up to on the website. We'll have a look at some examples of this in a minute. But when you get a recommendation from a friend, it can be very powerful. Imagine going to a website. You're reading reviews for a product and there are 1,000 reviews. Which ones are good? Who are these people? Which ones know anything? If you could click a button that says show only reviews from my friends, that would help you understand which reviews are useful, right? You might be buying a camera and the only review from a friend is someone who knows nothing about cameras. And if he says it's the best camera, then you probably know keep away. But whatever it is, having that context, understanding who these people are, can really help. Finally, social commerce. Now this is the idea that companies will build products to serve existing groups, rather than building a product and going, we've got an amazing product, now we have to market it and find someone to buy it. Instead, they'll look to these groups that have a need and deliver a product that's precisely what they want. Dell did something called Dell Swarm. How many people have heard of this? I'm guessing very few. Not many people have heard about this at all. But it's really clever. So Dell typically, if they have an agreement with a business, they'll give you a business discount if you buy a lot of computers, right? 5, 10, 15%, whatever. With this, what they did was allow one person to go to the Dell website, they configure their hardware, be it laptop, desktop, whatever, and then they can share that configuration with their friends. And every friend who buys the same configuration earns everyone a discount. And they were very clever. They targeted it at parents with children going back to school. So a parent would go in, they'd configure their computer for little Johnny, and they'd send it to all the other parents in the class. And of course, all the other parents go, oh, he's got a computer, our son needs one too. And so they sold them all that way. But everyone got a discount, so it still worked out as a benefit. And I think we're just going to see more and more of this as time goes on. Right. And just so that you guys don't think this is kind of crazy in the future, years away, we're nearly in 2010. And we're definitely, most people, as we saw, everyone's got a Facebook account or a MySpace account. Most people are using apps on Facebook or other platforms. Social colonization, the idea that you can log into other websites. This is happening now. People are experimenting with it. Social context, you'll see, this is already being dabbled with. And social commerce, Dell, there's a couple of other examples of people playing with this. But by next year, beginning of next year, or 2011, people are really, really going to be picking up on this. We're going to see it more and more. And so if we don't jump at this opportunity now, if you don't take the next 6 months to a year to understand this space, in 2 years' time, if you're finally starting to think about it, it might be too late. Other companies will have already taken advantage. Let's have a quick look at iGoogle. How many people know iGoogle? Everyone. Okay, so maybe I don't even need to cover this. I'll rip through it. iGoogle is... there we go. See, video game Zelda. iGoogle lets you have multiple bits of content from different sources. This is my real iGoogle homepage that I check every day. It's got reviews from Metacritic, which aggregates data from multiple review sites, puts them together. It basically saves me having to trawl multiple review sites. It's got a map search, because I still don't know London very well. I get lost all the time. It's also got these silly eyes, which follow my mouse around, which I love. And of course the jewel, for when it's a slow day at the office. But there's some other stuff too. Now, when you build a gadget, you want to think about real utility. This is Travelocity. They do flight search, hotel search, and so on. This was one of the very first gadgets to make it onto iGoogle. And you'll see, it's okay, but let's say that I want to get a flight from London to Prague. I hit enter, and what it does is just open a new window. And you'll see in a second it says, I don't even know what you mean by London. So can you refine that, please? Because we only have 2 airports, really, but I think it's 4. Luton and Stansted are. Anyway, all it's done is really taken me to the Travelocity website. It's not providing any functionality within the gadget beyond just to remind me, to be on my own page. Booking.com, they do hotels. And they allow you to search for different destinations, but again, when you perform a search, it will actually just open up in a new browser window. So if you search for New York, say, it just opens up in this browser window. Now they do have deal finders, which allow you to get data from directly within the gadget, but again, as soon as you click on these, it's going to take you off-site. So it's just opening a new window. The gadget itself doesn't really do much, but at least it has some limited search. Now Expedia, I think, have done one of the best jobs of all. Unfortunately, it only works for America, but the idea is really clever. Say you live in San Francisco, you have a friend who lives in Charlotte, and you want to visit them sometime in February. It doesn't matter to you when you visit, you just know that you can't afford more than $200. So you save these settings, and if you want to change the colour, you can, so let's make it blue. Hit save. And then every time you come back and reload this page, it will do a search for every day of that month. And it will show you where available the price for that flight. So here 222, here 208. Some of you at the back might not be able to see this, but there's a little yellow box around the cheapest day, which is currently $207. Now what that means is, instead of me having to visit Expedia or Travelocity or Kayak or any of these sites every day, doing the same 30 searches, trying to hope that the cost is going to come down, I install this gadget, I configure it, and it delivers the results that I want. It's like a personalized search engine. So it's really got some valid utility. This is the sort of thing that drives traffic too, because as soon as that price point falls below, click, bang, I'm halfway through the registration process already. It's really, really useful. There's another feature that I want to show you really quickly. And this is again available on most platforms now. So whenever you're thinking about building content like this is the BBC gadget. So it's got some headlines from the news and so on. But I can click this maximize button. And what it'll do is actually, fingers crossed, there we go, take over the whole screen. So this gadget can maximize and it can actually really utilize all the space. We're seeing this on Facebook, we're seeing it on MySpace, we're seeing it on Orkut, we're seeing it on all the platforms where you can build this content, the ability to take over the screen and actually have a real application available to your users. Now again, the BBC have, if you click on this, it opens it up in a new window. But if you wanted, you could track it within iGoogle too. You could allow people to interact within iGoogle. It's entirely up to you. But by providing this rich functionality, by allowing people to actually expand this out, they're intercepting people going to Google News. So rather than me going to Google News and looking at UK News Edition, not just Google News, but wherever you might look at your news, and then clicking on whatever's interesting, this is on my homepage. This is the thing I look at. I'm like, okay, what's the news today? Click, it's just there. So the BBC, by providing this utility, actually drive a lot more traffic to their website. It's kind of a weird way of thinking, give more away to get more back, but it really does work. You could also, here we go, just open this. Is it going to open? Yes. With all gadgets, not just iGoogle, you can have buttons which will allow you to add this content very, very easily. In this case, the UK marketing team have put together a tab of gadgets. So they've got a whole suite of gadgets if you're moving to London. You'll see here, TfL Tube Map. This just lets you find your way around the tube. The Evening Standard is a newspaper, top table for restaurant reviews, Gumtree for classifieds, Time Out for what's happening in the evening, and so on. But Google hasn't built any of these, and that's key. We've simply looked at all these gadgets that people have published and aggregated them together. This means that if you guys want to build a gadget, you can, obviously, but if you want to add more functionality around that, you can take gadgets from other people and combine them, and then have them installing from a single link. So I can either click one of these individually, and it'll be added to Google, Or I can click this tab. It'll take me to google.co.uk, where I'm not signed in. Brilliant. But let's go back to American Google and click one of these, where I'm still not signed in. I know I am. Okay, there we go. And you'll see it's just all these gadgets in a single tab, just aggregated together. Themes for iGoogle. You saw my Zelda theme earlier. These are really, really, really easy to build. 10, 20 lines of code and some art assets, some pictures. So if you have any themes that you want to think about building, it's a great way just to get a taste for how iGoogle works. You can install them again from a link on your own website, so you don't have to submit them to the directory if you don't want to. But whatever you're thinking, whatever you want to use, whatever you want to feature, you can. Also, as we've seen, you can have these links to install gadgets, widgets from your website. Now, I know we're being videoed, so Orange, if you're watching, I apologise. They probably won't, but I think they've got it wrong. You don't go to the Orange website. These guys are a phone provider, and they have a feature which allows you to top your phone balance up online. So you go online, you type in a code. When you're using that functionality, you don't sit there and go, I wish they had a gadget. I'm going to go looking for one and go browsing for their gadget gallery, their widget gallery. It just doesn't happen. What you do is you use this feature and you want to see this button right next to it. And if you don't see that, you're not going to go and click around the website looking for something to add it. You're going to assume it doesn't exist. So again, if you have great features on your website and you want to make a gadget for it, put the link to add the gadget right next to the feature itself. It's absolutely key. Amazon gadget. So I can demonstrate this, but I think you guys are getting the idea. Basically, what they do is price comparison. And you think, well, Amazon, electronics and games and books and DVDs and so on, why would they have price comparison? Well, because typically people with an iGoogle page are heavy Google users. They go to iGoogle, it's their homepage, and the first thing they're doing is maybe looking at their gadgets, but then searching. They're there, they're using Google because they search online. They want to use Google to search. By putting this functionality on the website and providing price comparison, Amazon are able to find out who their competitors are in different markets. So sometimes a gadget might seem counterintuitive. It might seem like you're telling people about people who are cheaper than you. But the market data that they're acquiring, the information that they learn from people interacting with this, is really powerful. Sometimes data is the most valuable thing of all. So, without further ado, the social web. Some of you will have seen this. It's from xkce.com. And it's kind of old, you can tell, because MySpace, massive, Facebook, tiny. But it's a nice way of thinking about the web as a world. And each website has its own culture. It has its own unique take. The BBC is very different from, I'll probably mispronounce this, but ug.gug.cz, is that right? Maybe you laughed, so probably not. But people who visit these websites, they expect different things. They're used to different experiences. And as someone who's building a website, how can I understand who all these people are? How can I communicate to them? How can I talk to them? It's actually very tough. You might spend all your time on Facebook or MySpace or Cyworld or Orkut, maybe even. And you might know people who live at Pixo or who live at Yahoo or who live in the Blogipelago. But you don't spend as much time there as they do. And the way that they experience the web is different. The links that they see, the pages that they see. Even MySpace versus Facebook. MySpace, you could personalize anything. Facebook really retained control over the image. And that's really important. So how do you talk to these people? Well, that's where the platform comes into its own. First of all, there's an easy way. This is the Telegraph website, but you'll find this on any website. These share buttons, they're really, really easy to add. And when you click them, you guys have all seen this, right? I don't need to explain it too much. But the idea is you kind of click, you can share that content on the service of your choice, and it's easy for you to share links with people. The problem is most websites don't add this functionality. They don't think it's worthwhile, or they think it's too hard. I'm going to show you how easy it is and why everyone should have these features. Let's go to Telegram. Pick a user. Story at random, I apologise, or whatever might come up. But there, you'll see the share button. Now when you click the share button, down at the bottom right, there's an add this link. If you click on add this, you're taken through to a wizard where you say, I'm a website, I want this button, I don't care about stats, generate code, and that's it, done. You cut and paste this onto your website, you've got that sharing button. Now you can spend time to write your own if you want, and that's admirable, and there might be features you want to add. But any website these days that doesn't launch without this, or something like it, is really missing an opportunity. People love to share, they want to talk about what they've been seeing. And this could be simpler. I mean, what would it take? 10 seconds, including walking there and back, and it's mental. Everyone should absolutely add this on. And you're going to think, well, who's going to share my content? And that's a good question, who knows? Well, Game, they know. These guys make washing powder. Not the most interesting thing in the world. But 2 years ago, and it's a play on word, post your game enthusiasm. It's like enthusiasm. How fun, how much you love games. It's tough to get people excited about a washing powder, right? Even so, they provided badging for Facebook and MySpace. And it was just a simple little icon that would sit on your profile. But they were one of the first companies to do this. And they're a washing powder of all people. Now, the stats that I've read, can anyone guess, in fact, how many people installed these badges on Facebook and MySpace? No? 200,000. And you just think, what? But it was 2 years ago. It was 2 years ago, and very few other sites were offering this functionality. And that's the key. So these days it's going to be harder. If you've got another washing powder and you want to do the same thing, I can't guarantee you're going to see 200,000 users installing your badge. But this is easy. Badging a profile is probably 30 lines of code. You know, it doesn't take much effort at all. So add this sort of functionality. Let people add things in. Let people personalize their homepage. Let people, put your logo on their profile if that's what they want to do. Now these days, Game have changed tack somewhat. And if we go to ilovegame.com, you'll see that they've actually started to, if they haven't changed it again, they've got some games. They did have some videos, but it looks like they've got rid of those. Let's see. Yeah, they've got, well, so there was a point at which, see, there we go, submit a review. They're getting people to actually write a review and user sent rating and stuff like that. And again, who's doing this? Well, people are. And it's adding content, and it's getting people to come back to the website, and it's getting people to talk about it. And that's a really powerful mechanism, no matter what your product. Facebook, they have over 400,000 apps. Now you guys were saying you've never had a sheet thrown at you. I find that hard to believe, I still get sheet thrown at me. But you've probably seen apps that you are aware of. So anyone who's installed, I don't know, Dog Book. Have you seen Dog Book? That's mad. Create a mini Facebook page for a dog. Make it friends. I like Super Poke, Playfish, make all sorts of apps. There's lots of apps you can engage in. As far as I can tell, most of them appear to be a variation on throwing sheep, which is just, it's a different form of poking a friend. But even if 90%, which is way high, and I'm sure it's not true, but even if 90% of the applications are just, poking variations, that's still 40,000 applications that provide real utility. Because it's developers who've gone out and thought, what's useful here? Photo sharing on Facebook was originally an app, and it's just one that they've rolled into the core features. The problem with Facebook, the one problem it has, because it's massively successful, 350 million people they just announced, 400,000 apps, as you saw. Zuckerberg, their CEO, went on record and said they're now profitable, they're making money, which is awesome. I mean, they're doing an incredible job. But it's a walled garden. If you make friends on Facebook, they're only on Facebook. If you build applications for Facebook, you need to learn Facebook markup language, Facebook query language to build your app. And they're not portable. You can't take them elsewhere. Now, with 350 million users and a pretty strong advertising network, it's not necessarily a bad thing. But the issue was, after Facebook's success, every other social network went, we want to be a platform too, and we should develop our own programming language. And as developers, it would have been a nightmare, because for each network you wanted to deploy to, you'd have to write a different set of code. And the thing is, it probably wouldn't have been massively different. It would have been a tiny bit different. Just enough to rip your head apart when you're looking at two things side by side going, why doesn't it work? So Google jumped in with something called Open Social. We felt that you shouldn't have to build, or when you're building content for the social web, you shouldn't think, which social network am I building for? In the same way you don't think, which website am I building for? You just build web pages. You should just build social apps. What we did was take the iGoogle functionality, which is just HTML, JavaScript, Flash, anything that works on the web, add some social APIs, and then actually build out a server that the social networks can take that would do all the rendering. And so they were happy not to have to worry about building their own language, implementing their own parsing server, their own gadget server. It really worked out for them. Very quickly, within about 3 months of launching, we dropped the word Google from Open Social. It's just Open Social, and we created a foundation with 7 board members, of which Google are only 1. And we're driving the spec forward. And the commitment Google have is to continue to implement the specification. But you'll see we're doing pretty well. I mean, this is 6 months old now, I apologise, but across about 20 networks, you've got access to about 800 million people. So you still, Facebook, notably, aren't part of it. But if you build social apps for Open Social and for Facebook, you're getting access to about 1.1 billion people. So it's a really, really easy way for you to write content, put it out there into the wide open world, and see who adopts it. That's one of the things about social. You don't necessarily know who your demographic is going to be. So by building content and letting it ride and seeing who adopts it and having clever analytics, you can actually tailor to your market space. What's in it? People, friends, activities, persistent data. You guys are probably pretty comfortable with the first 3. People, us with the thing, friends, our friends, activities, Facebook equivalent is the wall, but you know, the actual information stream. This is the interesting bit, persistent data. Now what this means is you can store a bunch of data on the social network, and you can actually use some of this processing power too. So if you build an application and it goes viral and it gets 100 million users, and it's really popular, you don't have to worry about having massive servers on the back end. If you want, you can make sure nothing's cached, and you can serve it live from your servers every time, but it's going to fall over unless you're prepared to invest a lot in infrastructure. Or use, you know, App Engine or Amazon S3 and EC2 or one of those cloud services. Instead, by caching stuff on the network, they'll actually do a lot of the processing, a lot of the caching, a lot of the delivery, a lot of the network for you, saving you a lot of money. So take advantage of it. Definitely leverage the network where it's possible. Gadget code. Well, no, HTML code. This is a web page. How many people have built a web page from scratch? Yes. Woo. Okay, so you guys know this pretty well. HTML tags, head tags, title, body tags, content. Pretty straightforward, right? Obviously, real web pages, a bit more than that. But they're the basics. This is a gadget, and you'll see pretty similar, right? This is module tags instead of HTML tags, module prefs instead of head, where things like the title go, and then content instead of body. And if you say content type is HTML, you can take a web page as is, paste it into here, and it'll just work. Copy, paste, display. Now, web page down to gadget is going to look a bit funny, and if your links or images or anything like that are relative, they probably won't load properly, but that's easily fixed with just find the place. The point is, if it's a web page, it'll work as an open social gadget. And that's really the key. We didn't want people to have to learn a new technology to be able to do this. So that is how you might speak to all of these people. That's how you can build, I apologise, but imagine building a hotel and then dropping it in. Thinking, hi, we're here. And you've got a presence in each of these places. You don't need to make a big effort to get to understand these websites, these cultures. You can just put it out there and see who adopts it. But what if, I hear you ask, what if you want to build your own island, your own landmass? And what if you want to put cool things from all over the web and then fly people in from all these other countries? Well, sorry, PowerPoint animation again. Of course, what I'm talking about here is really just your website. So how do you make your website social? You've got 2 choices. One, you can become a social network. You can implement your own friending mechanism, you can force people to register, and have to, then make their own friends. Realistically, these days, people are saturated with that. They don't want to have to maintain another friends list. So what's your option? Well, not that. It's, I must delete the slide. It is ug.gug.cz. Now, Friendconnect is the Google solution. There's also Facebook Connect, which offers something similar, so something to keep in the back of your mind. I know I'm here to talk about Google, but when it comes to the social, you have to do what's right for you. You have to be where your users are. And we'll have a look at some examples of sites which are implementing both Friendconnect and Facebook Connect, and they're working together quite nicely. But what does Friendconnect do? Well, at its most simple, let me show you a live example. So now I'm going to sit here and kind of shout sideways to you, but look up here, not at me. So I've come to this website. It's a demo website. I can see that there are 7,600 users, and I can see that there are 2,800 comments. Now, I'm not going to make you watch this video because it's kind of nonsense and it's a total demo anyway. But imagine that I actually wanted to join this site and interact. Previously, I'd have had to create my own username and password. I'd have had to really, fill out this registration form, go through the email, everything we've discussed before. Now, I click join this site, and I can pick which account that I want. So I can join with a Google username, a Twitter, Yahoo, AOL, Netlog, OpenID. And this will be any OpenID provider. You click the profile that you want to use, in this case Google, because that's the account I've got. You sign in with your Google username and password, and then it will refresh this page. Now, it knows who I am from my Google profile. I've got a made-up address, so everything I've just said about not being able to lie about who you are, ignore. But this is just an internal test, and so we haven't done any accounts. But you'll see that I've made friends with some people who are mostly in Google who are also testing this feature. And I can immediately see who they are. So of the 7,700 people, I've got 15 of my friends who are actually on this website. And I can see what my friends have been up to. So this is David Glazer. He's our head of engineering for developers. And I can click on his profile and I can find out more about him. So it says, right, he's my friend, yeah, we know that. I can send him a message. I don't get access to my email address, to his email address. It's just a mechanism that, behind the scenes, Friendconnect knows his email address, so they can send it, but it won't ever be revealed to me. I can see sites he's joined, so I can see what he's been up to, and I can see who his friends are. So maybe there's someone in his friends network that I've missed, or who's also my friend that I didn't join. What's interesting about this is it's a friend level above the individual networks. So David's friends, you'll see this, maybe some of you, I don't know, hopefully all of you can see this little G icon, the Google icon. There's a Twitter icon there. So it will allow you to make friends across networks. It doesn't matter where you've come from, what we'll do is import the friends from the networks you told us about, but then allow you to build these friends on top of that. And that's really something that's important to Google going forward. We don't think that friends lists should be siloed or restricted to individual networks or organisations. We want to have this kind of global friendship. It doesn't matter where you're from, you should just be able to friend someone. Find out what they're up to. So that's what David has been up to. Not very interesting, I'm sure you can see. So how about this critique? Now, this is complete, because it's a demo site, all the comments are nonsense. So don't worry too much about the actual comments. But I click this maximize button, and it brings up a little light box. And you'll see this link here, show friends posts only. Now I click that link, and what it'll do is take the 2,000 whatever it was comments down to 36. And actually suddenly, these are people I know. And I know who they are, I know what they think about various things, and their comments make a lot more sense. It's really put it in context for me. And so I'm able to very, very quickly add social context to this website. Now let's say I've come to this website and I don't know any English. All I know is Czech, so I can hit translate, and I can say translate into Czech, and I can hope that Google Translate doesn't let me down too much. I don't know, I've completely failed there. But does any of this look even readable? Does it make some kind of sense? So if you didn't know any English, you'd at least have a basic gist of what the website might be about. And we're hoping to allow people to communicate to some extent across borders. It doesn't matter how you get to this website, you should be able to participate. Google Translate is far from perfect yet, but it regularly wins awards for machine translation. So depending on the language, anything between 80 and 90% effective. So that's the very basic functionality of Google Friendconnect. And how do you add that to your website? Well, again, very simple. Here's the joining gadget that we saw before. So because I've said it's Czech, it now thinks that brilliant. But you'll see I can configure it very simply with just by clicking that color and allow me to pick a different color. If I know HTML codes, color codes, I can put them directly in there. And I can pick a font and I can set up some other bits and pieces. But then I hit generate HTML code, and what it'll do is give me a bit of code. Now this is longer than YouTube or the add this button that we saw before, because rather than iframing stuff, it's actually using JavaScript to generate some of this code. However, it's as easy as that. You don't have to be a programmer to make your website social. As soon as you cut and paste this code onto your website, that's it, done. People can now join your site. And in the moderate section, or the community data section, you're actually able to see my very popular website. You're able to see when people join, when people come in, how often they come back. And again, this is my personal page, which is why I've had to beg 15 people to join. But you've got all this data available, and if you want, you can download it in a CSV, you can start to process it. You can also use, there's a fully featured API, it's an extension of the Open Social API, which will allow you to actually request data from the back end, a tighter integration. But before we have a look at that, I want to show you a couple more examples of some cool Friendconnect gadgets. So let me shut down some of these windows very quickly. Oh, there was one other thing I wanted to talk about before I go on to this. I'll come to it in a minute. So we go back to gadgets here and hit sample site for recommendations. You guys will get the idea for this pretty quickly. But is there any I haven't clicked? Yes. So pictures, it could be news stories, it could be individual pages, but you'll see this recommended button. If you like what you see, sorry at the back if you can't see that, you click recommend it. Once you've clicked it, I'm going to jump now. It goes into that. And so it says already recommended, and you can undo that in your preferences if you want. But again, as people answer these, you'll see that it builds up over time. So again, because this is a demo site, Japan Somewhere Street, people are all just clicking the top one because it's easy. So that's at the top. But as you go down, the San Francisco night scene actually isn't the second one, so people are taking time. But for a real site with real content, you're actually going to see people starting to recommend these features to their friends. You can choose to send that back to the people on their networks. You can choose to surface it on the website itself. You can choose to email it out once a week and go, our most popular content this week has been, well, come back and have a look if you haven't already. There's a whole bunch of different ways you can use this data to encourage users to come back. Right, so that's the gadgets. All of these gadgets are available if you go to google.com/friendconnect, and then you click on gadgets, and you can just pick the ones you want, configure them, install them. If you want to make some money, pretty straightforward, click on the AdSense section. And what you'll do actually is you'll have to, so I've already configured mine. There used to be a unlink this account, but you'll be, if you haven't set it up yet, you'll be presented with a wizard that says, what's your AdSense account, what's your AdSense account ID number, put them together, okay, linked. If you haven't already created an AdSense account, it'll take you off to AdSense and allow you to create one there. So it really steps you through very easily. And then all you do is provide a bank number or an address where you want the check mailed, and that's it. You know, you're running out of getting money. Excellent. Now, my website, which is about video games, and I update probably once a month, and it's just me and my mum who read it. Seriously, I won't show you the, well, those of you who are at the developer day probably saw the analytics. It is like 2 users a week. But that makes much more than I thought it might have done. You know, not a huge amount, but it covers my hosting costs at $10 a month, just. So if you can generate a site that makes any significant amount of traffic, especially with this personalization feature, it's a real opportunity, at least to cover your hosting costs as a bare minimum. You know, build sites for free, nothing better than that. As I've already said, you can moderate content so you can see what people have posted, who's members, if someone's a pain, you can force them and remove them. And again, the advantage of this is, because they've got to join with one of these accounts, if you ban them, they can't just go straight back to registration, create another account, sign up and come back and start spamming them. They've actually got to have a valid account, which means they've got to authenticate the service itself. There's also community data. So if you guys want to export this data, that's the most important thing. We want this to be free for you to take away and use in whatever services you want. So you can get your basic Friendconnect data in JSON or XML, and you can just import that into whatever tools you need. You can also download all the data where people have responded to questions. So where they've recommended things, where they've answered polls, where they've saved any kind of data within your site, you're able to pull that back. And of course, there's a full suite of APIs. There's an example site that's running, but I'm not going to take you there. I'm going to take you to the Friendconnect API documentation. This lives at code.google.com. The Getting Started Guide, I'm not going to take you through that now because it's something to do in your own time. But the Getting Started Guide gives you some easy steps to start implementing Google Friendconnect into your backend. The thing about Google and its APIs, how many of you have played with the Google Maps API? Okay. And how many of you found it pretty easy to get started with? That's the thing about Google. We try to create examples that in an afternoon you can lock yourself in a room with your computer and just cut and paste the example code onto local files and actually get something that works. You know, especially for the corporate market where someone wants to use a new technology, these days they can't afford to let their employees have 2 weeks to learn how to use something. They have to be able to pick it up in a couple of hours, understand the capabilities pretty quickly. And it's the same with Friendconnect. Once you start delving in, play with the example code, it should become pretty straightforward. But I'm going to show you an example website that's actually integrated Friendconnect. This is the Huffington Post. I hit login, and you'll see I can choose to sign up and create a native Huffington Post account if I want to. Or I can join with Facebook, I can join with Twitter, I can join with Friendconnect. I'm going to choose Friendconnect, even though I've got the other accounts. And I'm going to say I want to sign in with Google. Here is my username and password. And hopefully that will refresh. And you'll see that they haven't got an ugly gadget that kind of sits aside from the site and looks like it's separate. They've actually got native code. So they're using Friendconnect to pull, using the API, they pull my picture URL. They're pulling my name, so I'm Gerald Hibbert, and they've pulled limited information down. They've requested, if I was doing this for the first time, you'll see a request pops up to access my email address. And if I click yes, they then subscribe me to some of their newsletters based on my interests. But what's really interesting here is that now I have a native Huffington Post account, I just don't have a username and password. And where there would normally be username and password fields in the database, they just have authentication token. And so I sign in using Google Friendconnect. Friendconnect passes a token back to the website. You say this token guarantees that it's this user, and that's the only authentication piece that they need. So whenever they see that token in the future, they know to match it with this user. So all it is a secondary authentication mechanism, but it's a really, really powerful one. I haven't had to step through the reams of registration, I just joined. And now, if they're really smart, they can start to share this information. Wherever they like. So maybe I'm spending time on reading this page. Why not pop up a message after 2.5 minutes saying, we noticed you've read this article all the way to the bottom. Do you want to share it with your friends? Click, distribute it. No effort on my part. It's actually just prompted me because it's worked out that I'm engaged. Okay, web expression. Final bit. You'll be happy to know. How many people have seen the Skittles website? Excellent. You guys are going to love this. Here we go. Skittles. No one tells the truth. So this little box here, this is the Skittles website. That's it. Everything else is coming from, well, various different places. In this case, their homepage today is Twitter. But what they do is rotate their homepage. You'll see that if I click on Friends, where do you think that would go? Well, giving it away, the internet connection's too good. But it goes to Facebook, because that's where the friends would be. If I click on Products, where do you think the product information is going to come from? Sorry? eBay? eBay? No. It is Wikipedia. Because that's where people have literally taken the time to create all the fruit flavours. So you can actually find out, which colours are what flavour. I've settled an argument this way. Media, videos, YouTube, pics, Flickr, as you'd expect. And again, it's just changing this in the background every time. The only page that they own and host is the contact, just because it's easier for them to have that hosted themselves and provide that mechanism. But by syndicating out a lot of their website, by just linking people to places that they're already engaging anyway, It's really, really powerful because all they're doing is actually just aggregating these things together. Of course they've got a Facebook page. Go join that. You want to be social? You want to talk about our friends? Go meet our friends on the platform of their choice. You know, you want to see what people are saying? They could use the API and spend a whole bunch of time dragging data in, or they could just redirect to their Twitter page, or even redirect to the search for a hash skippers, whatever. The point is they're not reinventing the wheel. And once they find out what works, maybe one day they will actually implement some of their own features. But right now, this is plenty. And look, you can even minimize the website. Okay, the next one. We've seen the game website. This was, I don't know how many of you will recognize Mandy Moore, but they ran this video for a while, and it's awful. You came to the website, sorry I love Gain if you're watching, but you came to the website and she's standing here going, I love the smell of Gain, and I remember I was 7 when I first went in. But, you know, it got people there. And so this is what I was looking for. This was the feature they had before. They were actually got her doing video there, encouraged people to upload their own videos, saying how much they love Gain. And there were hundreds of videos of people going, I love Gain too! But it worked for them, and it worked really well. It generated a lot of press. Boone Oakley. Have you guys seen this? This is quite fun. So you see that at the top I typed in Boone Oakley, right? It immediately redirected to a YouTube video. Now, if we scroll down a little bit. Now, these are quite fun because you can click at one of these and it'll actually jump to that section within the video. See? So I can jump there into Billy, and there's Billy there, who's their marketing director. More importantly, these are annotations down the side. So you click on these annotations and they can link to other YouTube videos. So they've actually built their site just using video. If you guys do remember this, go have a look at this Ruby Tuesday video. It's one of their marketing campaigns and it's really, really funny. But I won't ruin the surprise. You can click home and you can go back to the home page, and again it'll take you through that. And even the loading thing is kind of silly and funny. It doesn't need to load. But it's really bold. It's basically saying, you know, YouTube can provide most of the functionality we want. And it doesn't have to be YouTube, it can be any platform. But if you're sitting there going, think about all these things we need to build to launch the site, take a step back. Look to see if other services are providing this functionality already. A lot of the time you can find bits of what you need elsewhere and save yourselves a lot of time and money.